I feel it's time for a few thoughts about brewmastery, what we're good at, what we're not so good at, and how it feels to play a brewmaster now and going into Shadowlands. I'm going to be coming at you with a lot of suggestions, and that's because I'd like to start a discussion about where we're going as a specialisation. So, what are the problems with brewmaster at the moment as I see them? While I'm all for being a strong tank, when you unbalance physical mitigation to the point that Stagger has gotten to, you are leaving very few other areas for us to be useful. Put bluntly, by being way too powerful in one area means our weaknesses will likely be left unaddressed or deliberately made underpowered, and I'm thinking of magic mitigation and self-healing here. Stagger is an unfun, passive crutch in Shadowlands that can be made even stronger through talent and conduit choices, which just exacerbates the problem. Utility. Mystic Touch that any monk can bring, Detox that any monk can bring, Tiger's Lust, and Ring of Peace if talented. Safe to say that we bring a pretty underwhelming kit to group content. In fact, if you were bringing tanks on the basis of their raid or dungeon utility, Brewmasters would be a long way down that list. We're still vulnerable to both intermittent magic damage and bleeds, and that's okay, we need something to struggle against. But at present, our magic mitigation is largely limited to Celestial Brew, which is on our fixed 30-second cooldown, and it is absurdly strong in beta according to reporting. We don't have much left over to deal with magic though when that thing is on cooldown. 5% Breath of Fire damage reduction, up to 10% with the procky Celestial Flames talented perhaps. A 2-minute dampen harm cooldown that also has to be talented. 2 long cooldowns in Zen Med and Fort Brew. At present, we've kind of got feast or famine with handling magic damage, which has the potential to make us very spiky in encounters outside of our god window. The over-reliance on Keg Smash. Okay, look at this thing on beta right now. So it does AoE damage, a snare, it grants shuffle, and it reduces brew cooldown. Now that is a lot of things for one single ability to do. Then if you tie in the Scalding Brew Conduit, the return of Storm Stout's Last Gasp Legendary that gives it 2 charges, the synergy with the Curian Words of Order, and it's clear that at the moment we are relying far too heavily on this one ability to get a lot of stuff done. I'm not saying that it's not important and that we shouldn't be using it whenever we can, but it would be nice to de-emphasize Keg Smash a bit and give other abilities like Tiger Palm and Blackout Kick a look in. And talking of Blackout Kick, we move on to weapons. I already want Blackout Strike back, and I'd like to see us use our weapons more, not have the one ability that actually used our weapon removed. Well, it's not removed, it's just now it's a kick, and not a strike. For an example of what I mean, we can take a look at the Pandaria cinematic, and the actions of one C Storm Stout. As you can see, he's using his staff there quite a lot. He's parrying, he's dodging, he's disarming, he's even pole vaulting with the thing. The weapon is an extension of himself. He's using it a lot, and it's not something that Brewmasters do at all. The thing is practically welded onto your back for the majority of the time. So this is more of a flavour argument in general, but wouldn't it be nice to have a spinning staff attack instead of crane kick? To be able to disarm, to uppercut our enemies or trip them or wind them so their cast time is increased. And then you've got the more flavourable idle stances, the old Legion over the shoulder look. Can we have that as an option again? What about a standard attention? Or even the helping me stay up straight after one too many beers? It just seems like a waste to have a weapon equipped at all if we aren't ever going to use it. So in quick summary, I think we're a bit unbalanced right now. We have way too many eggs in too few baskets and a rotation that's actually gotten simpler than it already was. And as a tank, I would like to have more tools to help me do that tanking and have more control over what I'm doing. And I'm just not sure the latest Brewmaster iteration is really scratching those itchy bits. So, how would I address some of these issues? Well, I would prefer Stagger to be closer to 50%, with magic damage at 25%. This would mean actually having to use other abilities to keep ourselves healthy, and that is not a bad thing. As it stands currently, you will have absurdly high Stagger right off the bat going into Shadowlands, and a passive at that, which requires you to use your basic rotation. There's just nothing interesting going on there at all. Part of my de-emphasis on Stagger has to do with a wish for Shuffle to be changed back to 20% parry, like it has been historically. It also plays into my wish for our weapons to play a greater part in how we tank. Changes like this would also mean that our mitigation would now be a combination of Stagger, Dodge, Parry, and Guard. And I'm going to keep calling it Guard because it's Guard. I mean, seriously, it's Guard. Why even say it's a brew when it can't be affected by brew reduction? It is beyond stupid. So Guard is going to be nerfed. That is inevitable. What I'm hoping for is that the change will make it useful for larger magic bursts while still retaining that very modest 25% magic stagger in the background. I think this will help address at least one of Brewmaster's issues, which is basically vulnerability to any magic attacks outside of our guard cooldown. It's safe to say that the Great Unpruning was a little underwhelming for Brewmasters, as we already had Expel Harm and Fortifying Brew in our repertoire. Spinning Crane Kick and Touch of Death is nice, and it's good to have Angry Dave baseline, but there are a lot of other abilities back in the storied past of mastering the Brewsticles that would have been welcome too. Take Zen Pulse for example. Obviously it would scale off of our attack power instead of spell power, but there's a flavoursome ability that looks neat. It can be cast on other people too. We need more Zen and Chi in our lives, and that's one way. And before you ask, no, I'm not advocating for Chi to come back. Yet. Defuse Magic. It is beyond belief that this ability is not available to our specialisation, but is fine for Windwalkers and Mistweavers. If anything, I think this is what Guard should be, or something closer to this. Greatly reduced power to absorb magic damage, but on a 30-second cooldown. And no interaction of stacks of Purifying Brew either to make it overpowered, just leave it like that. Purifying Brew should be a meaningful choice in its own right, not something you use as often as possible to get enormous absorbs. Oh, Dizzying Haze. Does anyone remember the justification for removing this? It was so fun! At present, our range pulls are pretty much Chi Burst, if you've talented into it, or Crackling Jade Lightning. And anyone who's pulled a pack with those two, from range, in dungeons, know how little threat it generates. I'd love to have Dizzying Haze back. The Necrolord ability Bone Dust Brew has its range, but not the snare or the threat. Given the choice, would you like to toss barrels all over the place from range again, or would you like to talent into the underwhelming special delivery talent? I don't think there's much of a contest there. Avert Harm or Guided Meditation. Anyone else remember when Avert Harm was baseline? I remember. Given the story of Battle Line for Azeroth, it looks like there's a new spirit of cooperation and hugging between the Horde and Alliance at present, so all the more reason to pull one of these two abilities out of War Mode, where it's just rotting, and give us some utility. Personally, I'd prefer Avert Harm out of those two, because it's useful both for dungeons and melee and raids without being absurdly OP like Guided Meditation would be. This next one could be a bit of a controversial choice. Elusive Brew. This is from a time when dodge was much more important to us. Basically, your auto attack, critical strikes, would grant you a stack, or 2 or 3 stacks, up to 15 that you could use whenever you wanted. And, I would like something like this instead of what we're currently getting. Because this actually rewards you for using it well, as opposed to just, passive stagger endlessly. I think this is more along the lines of me wishing us to become more of a dodge tank again, which I know isn't a very popular design at the moment. And I know it won't be a popular opinion either, but, I'd like us to stand out a little more. And I think that's one of the ways that we can do it. Going back to Stagger for a moment, Blizzard needs to switch agility and mastery around, as it's completely backwards in its current state. It stands to reason that the more agility you have, the more effective you'll be at getting only glancing blows, or being able to counterattack swiftly. Mastery of the drinking of beer would obviously help you shake off being attacked, at least until the morning anyway. So I'd like to see Stagger affected by mastery, and have agility affect attack power and armor. So, to TLDR, I would like us to be a dodge tank, with other abilities like Stagger and Guard and Parry to complement that. To have Avert Harm or a similar ability to help others out in group content and wave my utility flag around. And to be able to use my weapon, either one-handers or two-handers, in both the visual sense and the abilities sense. So it's not just a stick sewn into my back for a whole expansion. Now, I know there's a lot there, and you're bound to disagree with at least some of it. Would you like to return to multiple mitigation methods, or is Stagger your thing? Are you happy with the current version of Brewmaster? Do you have any ideas on how to change things up? Let me know in the comments below. I will see you next time, and until then, Grumpy Gamer, out!